Hello there, guys. Again, this is Alex here, bringing you part one of What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Link. So, with me here is Erdgan Tsuchimikado. So, say hi, Ed.
Hello, guys. It's me, Erdgan Tsuchimikado. And I would like to say that I'm sorry for not managing to bring up the script for part 3 for Zeno Tsukaima. And I only hope that you guys like this one as a replacement while I keep on working on part 3 and part 4 for the Zeno Tsukaima. And I hope you enjoy.
All right. So yeah, that was that. So, in this case, he gave me the scripts like a month prior. So, in this case, I'll start discussing this one. I do apologize that that I haven't been uploading. I was gonna upload something yesterday, but I was revisiting his scripts, and I had to add something else because didn't have a good starting point. So that's basically me working on the script for this one. So the beginning parts are mine. The other dialogues at the end are basically his. So let's get started. So, Izuku Midoriya, born July the 15th of X year. His parents, are actually quite joyful for his birth. The years would go by. As for Deku, he has quite some distinguished features, since he has some of his bangs blonde and the rest green from his mother Inko. And as for his eyes, they're actually a sky blue, which kind of puts a very unease to Hisashi, since he feels that his son is not his, biologically speaking. Hisashi would try to distance himself little by little from his family, as he sees that his marriage is most likely a farce, and Inko would constantly talk with Hisashi of her family, and Deku actually having features from his grandfather. And Hisashi still wants confirmation, and is still quite doubtful. This little strain in his parents' relationship made Inko just enamored, made just Inko play it off her interactions with Hisashi and play videos of heroes to Deku, so he doesn't get any wiser. Which Deku is very enamored with a particular hero, All Might. When Deku hits his 4 years of age, he actually goes to a quirk doctor, as well as to get a blood test around the same day. Deku is quite excited, his mind so filled with all these sorts of ideas as to what his quirk can be, or what he can possibly get. And Inko can finally take the doubt off Hisashi's chest and get her life back on track, as when Deku gets tested and is told by the doctor that, he's quirkless, and that him become a hero is not gonna happen, kid. As Deku smiles, turns into a shock and then into sadness, as Inko feels terrible for her dear child, as she would have actually asked for the quirk doctor, where they can actually now start taking a blood test, as the quirk doctor were calling for a nurse to bring them to the area. So when the results get in about Deku's parentage, Hisashi is quite relieved and very sorry for doubting his wife, and is a little sad that his son won't have a quirk, but actually tries to cheer Deku up as to go on a family trip, and Deku would actually be quite happy that at least his father is there to support him and not trying to avoid him like he usually does when he gets home, as Hisashi is thinking how he's gonna have to make up for lost time he hasn't had with his son. A couple of months go by. Deku is a kid in school that usually gets picked on for being quirkless, and a certain childhood friend always beats Deku up, since she sees that Deku is quite pathetic, thinking he can become a hero even without a quirk, which pisses her off, as Deku would try to be quiet about how he gets treated from school, as to not make his parents worry about him. After 2 years, Hisashi is actually getting a month off on vacation, and after that he would actually start working overseas, as he has gotten more into his role as a father and usually takes Inko and Deku to go shopping, going to theaters, and buying Deku some collectibles of All Might, which Deku is always happy about. So he was thinking of taking his family to an amusement park, and after that, going somewhere in the countryside to take in the fresh air and then get back to work, as he knows he's gonna miss being back home. As Inko, during Hisashi's planning for the family trip, would suggest to go with her father, that is by the rural area and has a certain little dojo, so Deku can at least get to know defense classes from his father, from his grandpa, as Hisashi isn't too keen to see his father-in-law, as he feels he might get his ass handed by him for doubting his wife of a potential affair. As Inko would be very insistent that they should go, and Hisashi, out of shame for his doubtfulness, doesn't have any other choice but to listen to his wife and Inko saying where they would be heading and surprising his dad with them going to visit and Deku getting to know his grandpa. So a couple of weeks go by as they can now start the trip. Hisashi and Inko decide to go by bullet train on their trip to visit her father. And on the ride, they would actually be telling Deku that this would be their last trip, family trip in a while, as Inko would be explaining that Hisashi is getting a promotion and would now be starting to work overseas, and that he might be able to come and visit on vacation days, but not frequently, as Deku gets visibly upset that his dad won't be staying, and Hisashi, to cheer up Deku, telling Deku that I might send you some collectibles if I get the chance to send it overseas for you, Izuku. As Hisashi starts scruffing up Deku's hair, as Deku looks visibly happy and feels that although he doesn't have a quirk, he might not necessarily need to be a hero, but if he can do anything to help others, he wouldn't mind that, and feels that ever since he went to go check out about his quirk, his dad gives him all the attention he wanted, as these thoughts run through Deku's mind. Both Hisashi and Inko would be interested in what Deku's thinking about, as they start asking Deku how school has been, and if he has anything he's interested besides All Might and Heroes, and if he's been getting along with Aunt Mitsuki's daughter, as Deku would really not respond at first, getting a little pouty, and at the end begrudgingly telling them that Katsumi usually picks on me in school, as both Inko and Hisashi kind of laugh as they say to Deku, then that means she likes you then. As Deku gets taken aback by this, as Inko would start explaining how girls can be tough on boys when they like them, so maybe she's putting a front. As Deku isn't really too keen on listening to his parents, the bullet train would stop at a nearby city. As the train stops, some passengers get off and some start getting on board. The train carriages start to actually move in this case and start shaking, as people on board the train are taken aback as the train starts shaking more as if it was an earthquake, as Deku's parents look visibly concerned as some of the passengers start looking out the windows outside. The people start shouting, "It's a villain attack!" as a battle between a villain and a hero erupts, as a four-legged behemoth, 2 stories tall of a creature, would emerge from the city as it starts rampaging and throwing rubble as it hits one of the carriages of the train and would crush anyone inside the train. And people are now panicking as they start to make a run for it and saturating the exit doors. And as for this, Inko and Hisashi are panicking as well. Deku really can't understand what's going on, and if it's a villain attack, surely there must be heroes, right? Just like All Might, as Deku's curiosity is overwhelming, trying to see what's going on through the windows, as both Hisashi and Inko grab Deku and start making their way to the exit doors. As staff of the train start telling everyone to go out in a orderly manner and exit one by one, no one is really listening. Hisashi and Inko try to make it at the exit doors and try to make it so Deku actually can get out, as they try to push him out by little wedges and that are between some of the people, and they're still shaking as both Hisashi and Inko manage to get Deku outside as they get stuck at the exits by everyone else, as both Hisashi and Inko tell Deku that it's gonna be alright, that in a moment they'll try to get out, and Deku kind of stands up from the area where he was. He sees something actually up in the sky as it immediately comes crashing down and it hits the carriage he was on a moment ago, as the windows and the structure of the carriage gets bent over as the rubble crushes everyone inside, as the screams die out and new ones arise from the overwhelming dread looming in the air, as Deku sees a pool of blood dripping as he is cut by the shards of glass that flew over the place, and is overwhelmed as starts shouting for his parents as he gets no response and starts to cry as he's on the floor. And just as police officers and a hero that is helping in the rescue would arrive too late to see the carnage unfold, as they would start helping everyone else out of the other train carriages, as one of the officers would grab Deku out of there before any more collateral damage gets thrown their way. And the villain wasn't apprehended, as he was making a break in to a local bank, as he was able to take the whole vault made out of titanium out of the bank, and also uses it as a makeshift weapon against anyone who stood in his way. Deku is actually now at the police department, as no one knows whose child it is, and the officers will still need to register the people who are now deceased, as they would check Deku's place of residence and for any of the neighbors by the apartment complex, as they would ask for information in regards to any family members that can pick up Izuku Midoriya, as they were able to get in contact with Mitsuki Bakugo, one of the personal friends of Inko Midoriya, as Mitsuki, alongside with her husband Masura Bakugo, would come to Deku. All this time he's only been looking down on his hands and isn't saying a word, as Mitsuki would go and hug Deku as he is quite unresponsive. Mitsuki says, "I'm sorry about your parents, Izuku. I'm so sorry. I didn't know, but it'll be alright. Me and Masura are gonna take care of you. You can play all day inside with your All Might toys, and you can even play with Katsumi as well. So we'll take care of you. Does that sound okay, sweetie?" As Deku still doesn't react, as this scenario unfolds, the process to get someone from Deku's family would actually have to be postponed for the meanwhile, as he would be taken in by the Bakugo household, as the police department would still have to get in contact with at least one registered family member that they found for Deku at this point, as they have only an address and no contact info. Sorting the casualties of the villain attack would actually take priority first. So Mitsuki would actually make the preparation for Inko and Hisashi's funeral, as she gathers some family members that may be able to assist, old friends from high school and colleagues of Hisashi, to give their respects, as a lot of people give their sincere apologies to Deku for his loss, as he doesn't respond and always just looks down at the floor, not even weeping a tear during the whole ordeal. And Mitsuki, while they take custody of Deku and try to make him feel at home, as well as trying to get at least some items from Deku's home and make sure he feels comfortable, as with Katsumi, she did not really expect for Deku to be here at her house and also be such a loser, as she would try to blubber out her disdain towards Deku, as her mother would just have a talk with her in her room, as she would explain what happened with Auntie Inko and Uncle Hisashi, and that she tried to get along with Izuku just so he can at least move on. As she wouldn't be able to really understand the situation at first, but gradually comes to understand over the coming months how Deku usually lies in bed, not moving. He doesn't even respond to questions, only nods yes or no, and doesn't react by getting hit by either Katsumi herself or even when he gets beaten up at school. As she starts feeling more bad for Deku and starts thinking if she was so distasteful towards Deku, just pick up his dream to become a hero, and feels a little guilty inside and wants to make sure he can at least talk, he can react, talk again, and to hear him whine or see him smile so she can ease her guilt for putting him down. For Deku, all this time has passed. He doesn't feel motivated to do anything, nor to react to things that'll hurt him. He has no reason to speak up. He should have just been with his parents, and maybe he might have not been such a nuisance. And those thoughts always ring in his head. Useless, quirkless, loser. A certain day in school, he's getting picked on by a group of kids that like to beat up Deku, who just takes it and just is just some quirkless nobody. And then they usually start taking his bento box that Auntie Mitsuki would make for him, and Katsumi would actually see this and actually goes up to the group of boys as she starts using her quirk and creating explosions in her hand as she starts beating the group of boys as she goes a little ballistic on them since she has had enough of it to see them do this to Deku for so long that she can't take it anymore. And as she started this, and now she'll end it. As she beats up the other kids, they start crying in pain as they just make a run for it and telling Katsumi that we're going to tell the teacher as they go off. And Katsumi would be huffing and at least, puffing as she cleans some of the bruises out of her as she just looks at Deku. And actually starts extending her arm towards Deku. As Deku is still quite unresponsive, and she would grab onto Deku's hand, trying to get him off the floor as she pulls him so he can stand up, and Deku is still being quite unresponsive, still as he looks at Katsumi as she gets mad and then starts yelling at him as she slaps him and starts crying, saying, I'm sorry. I call you a loser, but stop looking at me like that. Say something. Don't just look at me like that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Or if I would have known better, I wouldn't have said anything. Just say something. I can't stand looking at you like that. As Deku starts actually regaining some semblance of himself and saying, I'm sorry, Katsumi. As Katsumi would start crying even more as she hugs Deku, and Deku is taken aback by this sudden change. A year would actually pass by since Deku moved in with Aunt Mitsuki, and also getting along a little bit better with Katsumi. She doesn't pick on Deku anymore, and in most cases, whenever he is about to get picked on by other kids, Katsumi would step in as she would beat them up. As Deku was still unresponsive, and Katsumi would just say to Deku to just stand up for yourself, Izuku. I'm not gonna always be here for you. Just stop being a wimp, and maybe they'll stop picking on you. As Deku in a quiet tone says, I'm sorry, Katsumi. I shouldn't really be here then. I'll just get out of your way. As Katsumi grabs Deku's arm and just hugs him, and Deku hugs Deku and tries to play off her comment, saying, I didn't mean it, silly. Let's go home. Mom is gonna make your favorite meal and maybe you'll enjoy it. As they would be heading home. After the situation that happened with Katsumi, Deku still has trouble expressing himself or even talking, as Mitsuki all this time was still worried sick about Deku, but didn't want to impede in his procedure of grieving, and he might eventually get over it. As she gets a knock on the door, it's old man. It seems that she does not know, and somewhat seems a little foreign. As she opens the door, and this old man makes himself known as he comes to introduce himself and says that he's actually Izuku's grandfather. As Mitsuki actually was kind of surprised that they were able to get in contact with at least Deku's or Izuku's grandpa, as the man would actually be saying that he'd be taking care of Izuku from now on. As Mitsuki would actually tell Deku would actually come at the front door, as there's someone who wants to see him. As Deku sees a strange, well, you could say a foreign, older man, as he basically looks at Deku, and Deku looks at him, still a little bit, you could say, unresponsive, emotionless, as the man would actually present himself as his grandfather, saying that, it's nice to see that my dad actually had a son, as he would actually show a little bit of a talk to Mitsuki in regards to him taking custody, that everything has already been set, and he already has the proper documentation to get Deku back, well, to a place in a rural area where he'd be safe, he'd be taken care of with no issues. As Mitsuki is quite happy, but at the same time doesn't really want to go of Deku, not just yet in his current state. As Deku's grandpa would actually say to Mitsuki that I'll take care of it. He's my grandson. We need a lot of catching up to do. I'll make sure all his needs are accommodated. So you won't have to worry about this. I'm sorry for if he caused you any sort of trouble. As Deku's grandpa, sends a little envelope to Mitsuki, as it seems to be almost all the expenses of Deku's, stay at, the Bakugo residence. As Mitsuki would actually try to decline this, but the old man insisting that she keep it. As Mitsuki would actually just start preparing at least Deku some of his clothes, some of his toys, as well as grab something, so grab a snack so he doesn't feel empty at the on the way home. As Deku is kind of still unresponsive, and Katsumi a little bit sad that Deku would actually be leaving. She kind of feels still responsible for what she's done, and she really would like to make amends for that, but at the same time knows that at least Deku might be at a better place. As for time passes in this regards, as his grandpa, Deku's grandpa, is he's not from Japan. He actually has I want to say came from a different country, moved into Japan after meeting a certain someone, his wife, basically falling in love, having children, as well as eventually losing her. As Deku's grandpa, I completely understand where Deku comes from, but at the same time, actually is a little bit stern on trying to teach Deku to get past by this, that he actually needs the courage to overcome this sense of grief, that in a certain way that he needs to move on, and by that he actually needs to start actually working, not just mentally, working on mathematics, homeworks, but on his self-improvement, his body, his mind, clearing his mind of ill thought, as his grandpa would say. And in this case, Deku would usually be sparring with his grandpa, day and out, night and day and out. Also getting a school tutor, or well, actually a home tutor by his grandpa in this case. So he at least gets actually training from his grandpa, actually learning different martial arts in this case, as he actually would be over 6 years, almost like the age of 13. He has mastery over 3 martial arts: karate, jiu-jitsu, kung fu. He has actually a fit body for someone of his age, and as well as a decent cooking skill, actually better than Bakugo's, as his reflexes were actually second to none, as if time stopped in a way, and is somewhat of a, his personality is still silent. He's somewhat silent, in regards to what still happened, but actually after going back into the city, his grandpa would actually encourage him to actually go back to the city, see about saying hi to Mitsuki, as well as, actually giving him a place to stay, a small house in the city, as Deku will actually not be paying any bills until he actually graduates from his college, his preferred college of choice, or high school. And he passes the year he actually passed by catching up on regards to the homeschooling, going back into middle school. So 1 year later, at the start of the anime, let's go. Izuku Midori was having somewhat of a weird day. He woke up from a strange dream, but he couldn't recall it. He had his usual routine, going on a little jog, breakfast, take a shower, getting ready for school, and, head to school. On his way to school, near the train station, he witnessed a villain attack during the early rush hour. He was studying the fight to improve his own martial arts, but the fight kind of took so long that he was already 45 minutes late for school. He started to run. As soon as he arrived, the principal caught him and lectured him for almost being an hour late. But considering he's one of the best students with very decent grades, the principal lets it slide. Again, once Izuku arrived in class, the teacher gave him double the assignments to do, unlike the rest of his class. And during lunch, Katsumi would actually go up to him, as Katsumi would say, "Oh, hey Izuku-kun, what got you so late in this morning?" Izuku would respond, "Oh, hey Kachan, about that, I actually saw a villain attack, and I saw the new Hero Mount Lady in action, and she was pretty too." As Katsumi gets a little flustered, "You jerk, I bet you were late because you saw that giant Spimbles beating some villain, right?" As Izuku is actually trying to calm her down, but with no avail. Katsumi would respond, "How many times do I have to tell you that someone like you should just stay away from danger unless I'm around? What if something happened to you, like it happened to your parents? How do you think I'll feel, huh?" As Izuku, in apologetic tone, "Kachan, as Katsumi turns away to hide a little bit of her blush. "And don't get the wrong idea, since I'll be becoming the number 1 hero, it would be a waste to lose a potential sidekick like you. It's not that I like you or anything." As Izuku would respond, "Kachan, I understand, I know that I'm quirkless, but I at the very least want to try being something more than just a quirkless loser in the eyes of society, and I also want to prove that I too can be a hero. And besides, I've been learning martial arts during the time I was with my grandfather. He did say that my reflexes are amazing, so there's nothing to worry about." As Katsumi, in an angrily tone, would say, "Fine, idiot, do whatever you want, but just don't go crying to me when you realize that I was right. Oh, and before I forget, Mom insists you come over for dinner, so you'll be walking me home. And on our way, we'll be stopping by food places I need to check out. As Izuku actually starts chuckling. Kachan, if you wanted to hang out, you could have just said so. As Katsumi gets flustered and tells, "Shut up, you idiot. Let's just head to class before the bell rings and before I punch you in the guts." As they arrived in class, as the teacher walks in holding a bunch of papers with the students' high school application, and already knowing that all of them would be choosing a hero school, the teacher points out two students, Izuku Midoriya and Katsumi Bakugo. Teacher impressed that Katsumi and Izuku Midoriya. "I see that both of you applied for UA. How wonderful. And according to the mock test, the both of you got the highest score. And with your grades, I'm sure you'll both get in." As Katsumi glares down at Izuku. As, let's say, a random student would say, "What, UA? As in the greatest hero school in all Japan? But doesn't it have like a 2% acceptance rate? Oh, hey, then they teach everyone knows how powerful Baku is. She guaranteed to get in, but that quirkless waste of space, I bet he can manage to get in. He'd probably get himself killed during the training or the mock battles." As that comment, everybody started laughing. Then suddenly Katsumi slammed her fist on the desk to get the attention of the class, as Katsumi looks pissed and a very violent tone would say, "Who said that?" As she looked around the class to see who was cowering in fear by her tone. When she sees a guy with a terrified look on his face, she walks over to the guy, grabs him by the collar of his shirt, and whispers in his ear. The others looking as the scene plays out. They noticed that the guy's face was turning from terrified to horrified as he nodded to whatever Katsumi was whispering to him. The others were confused, but knowing Katsumi, she would have used her explosion quirk to send this guy directly to the nurse's office, if not the hospital, in critical conditions. When everybody saw Katsumi take her seat, they looked at the guy and they saw the coward shaking, with that same horrified look almost becoming paranoid, as if he was haunted by something. But no matter what other people asked him, he didn't say a word. After classes were over, the guy ran out as fast as he could, leaving a trail of dust clouds behind him. Everybody except for Katsumi, as others were wondering if the guy developed the speed quirk, while Katsumi laughs about it so hard that she started to shed tears. While Izuku and Katsumi were walking, he wanted to ask what she told the guy, but knew better than to ask. Meanwhile, she tried to convince Izuku to drop out of UA, but failing. When suddenly explosions could be heard and heroes could be seen heading towards the explosion's direction, and Izuku followed the Katsumi. As they arrived at the location, there was a crowd. Luckily, Izuku got past it, so he could actually see what's going on. There was a sludge villain wrapped around a girl with the golden blonde hair and ocean blue eyes, trying to free herself with all her might, and pro heroes on the scene standing around unable to do anything. As soon as the girl's ocean blue eyes met with Izuku's, a blinding light starts to emanate from Izuku's right hand, as he vanishes for a moment and reappears soon after, carrying the young lady in a bridal style. He lets her down, grabs a wooden pole from the ground, striking the villain multiple times until he's nothing more than a puddle of his own sludge. Everybody actually started to cheer for Izuku. Even the pros were impressed, as well as a certain hero among the crowd, as the light from, Izuku's hand faded away. It left a mark, and soon after, Izuku fell on the floor, unconscious. Katsumi, seeing everything that happened, she made her way to Izuku's unconscious body, worried with tears in her eyes, thinking that the worst happened, but as she checked her checked his pulse. She was relieved, and when she checked his hand, she was visibly confused. After the incident, the ambulance brought the young girl and Izuku, accompanied by Katsumi, to the hospital. Meanwhile, in Izuku's mind, he hears a voice. As he starts questioning, "Oh, rise, O chosen one, the time has come for you to awaken. A great calamity is upon us, and soon destiny would find you. Now the time has come to you to awaken, Izuku." As Izuku wakes up, suddenly the two girls that were talking were surprised that Katsumi tackled Izuku before he would have a chance to get up, and hugging him tight. Katsumi holding in her tears. "You jerk. Izuku, you're a big jerk. How could you? I thought I lost you. Do you know how you would have hurt me so much?" As Izuku tries to calm down Katsumi, and the girl Izuku saved introduces herself as Griselda Tsuchimikado. I wonder why. As Izuku, in a concerned voice, says, "Oh, Miss Tsuchimikado, I'm glad to see you're doing okay. I hope that you didn't get injured during that attack." As Griselda, blushing a little bit, "Oh, please call me Griselda, or Giselda for short. Aside from that, I'm glad you're doing okay. I hope that you didn't get injured during the attack." As in this case, oh shit, I repeated myself, sorry. As aside from a few scratches, I'm actually perfectly fine. Thanks for your concern. And if I may ask, what was that back there? As Katsumi, irritated and pissed off, "Yeah, well, what the hell was that? I thought you didn't have a quirk. You never told me. How could you?" As Izuku is visibly confused on what the two girls were talking about, he inspects his hands, and on his right hand, he sees a symbol, the Triforce of Courage, unaware of its meaning or what it represents. And then he recalls that he's seen in his weird dreams and wonders. As Griselda says, "Anyways, whenever the case, I'm grateful, but it's getting awfully late, and my father doesn't like it when I'm out late. He gets worried easily. I gave Katsumi my phone number, so in case both of you wish to hang out, we could do so. So see you next time." As Griselda left the room, the doctor entered, and since Izuku was exhausted, it was nothing too serious. The doctor gave him the okay to leave. And on the way to Katsumi's house, the two talked. Katsumi wanted to know more about that mark on his hand, but not even he knew what it was. But instead actually told her about this weird dream he's been getting, and the recent one being when he was in the hospital, still thinking about what the voice said. As Katsumi would say, "Oh, come on, Izu. Don't tell me that you believe in that destiny crap, do you?" As Izuku would respond, I don't know what to believe. In my visions, I've seen so many people die by the hands of this thing. And it is, thanks to you that I kind of overcame what happened to me and started speaking again. If it weren't for you, I don't know what I could have been. So that's why I'm also actually going to UA, not just for me, but also to watch your back, the same you've done for me. As Katsumi actually starts blushing, as she would say, "What? So you can't just say stuff like that." Looking away from Mizuku, "You don't have to mention it. And one more thing, don't think that flattery will get you anywhere. You want a special? Do you want anything special with me?" As Izuku kind of laughed and continued their little argument until they arrived at Bakugo's residence. They had their long-awaited dinner. After that, he stayed the night like old times. So I'm gonna leave it. That's the thing. Fucking ad. Regardless, that's the story, guys. If if I see that there's interest in this one, Ed did give me a part 2. So if you guys are interested, I can upload this one by tomorrow. If you guys liked it, I'm not gonna lie. That part was basically corny as fuck. But that's it for you. Regardless, yeah. You might have noticed a difference with how I was speaking, because yeah, he did mention Deku as Izuku. I don't mention him as Izuku. I should mention him as Izuku. But regardless, I think we already know who we're talking about. So yeah. I've been currently working on various stuff, so I do apologize that that I haven't been able to upload more frequently. And yeah, this is basically I've been working on this script for the beginning part, like for 3 days straight. Not straight, but just getting general ideas, seeing how I put things together, and yeah. And I was also drawing. I hope you like the drawing. I know it looks awful, but I'm still learning, guys. I'm still learning. Well, I hope you guys liked the video. Again, if you guys still wanted me to continue this one, I do have the part 2 already. I'm gonna have to reread it because I'm gonna have to fix some stuff. Apparently, yeah, fix some stuff. And man, I want to stop that, man. But regardless, yeah. Any questions? Ask Ed. This is his script, so just except for the beginning part, that he didn't give me anything to work for the origin. So yeah. Have a good night.